Educating our nation's children is the priority of educators across the United States. As the number of school-age children continues to increase, so does the number of children in the process of learning English as a second language. In fact, English language learners, or ELLs, are the fastest growing segment of our school population. In this video, you will visit Ms. Kim Cook's first grade classroom. Ms. Cook is a mainstream teacher, and her classroom includes children who are in the process of learning English as a second language. Note how Ms. Cook uses specific ELL teaching strategies, models student tasks, and also builds academic language with her ELLs in a big book literacy lesson.
My name is Kim Cook, and I'm a first grade teacher of 17 students. I've got 3 English language learners in my classroom. They are primarily at the speech emergent stage. My classroom is set up for ease of use for my students primarily. I want it to be a language-rich environment for my kids, as well as I need it to be well illustrated as well for my ESOL students, so that they can make sense of the print that they're reading. Some of the vocabulary is chosen for me, and then some of the vocabulary I choose myself. We're going to talk today about a family, a big family, a huge family that lives in a teeny tiny little cottage. Cottage. What could that be?
It's like an RV is just a little bit different.
Well, it's a place where people live, okay. Stephen?
Like a hut?
Like a hut? You're on the right track. Maya?
Like a house, but it's like a little bit smaller.
That's a great definition, like a house, but a little bit smaller. So a cottage is a small house. So a large family that lives in in a little teeny tiny house or a cottage. Now, we've been focusing on predicting. And we know that to make predictions, Alnaria, we have to think about what we already know, what we hear and read in the story, and what the title is. We can use all of those things to make predictions. And then, as we're reading through the story, what do we need to do with our predictions? Janique, what do we do? Change them if we need to, right? So if we find out something different from what we predicted, Maya, we're going to change our prediction. So let's make some predictions right now. Let's look at this picture. Everybody put your hands down. Take a good look at this picture. Remember what I told you, this is about a big family that lives in a tiny cottage. And the title of the story is Now Things Are Worse. I want you to think, turn to your shoulder partner, make some predictions. What would this story be about? Yair, you're with Seth.
The house is so big. Zombie Lego? Yes. So do. The house is too small for a whole big family.
Oh. No, not right. He just tugged in the speaker.
Because that
Just I don't even know that's the speaker.
Oh, I see that Taylor and George are done. Aliana and Janique. Earl, Stephen, thank you. All right, eyes here now. Thumbs down, eyes here. Taylor, George. Okay. Maya, I see your hand up. Do you have a prediction for us? What's your prediction?
Girl who's worried that,
This one?
and she's trying to bake something for a party, and she doesn't have the recipe.
Okay, so you think she's worried because she doesn't have the recipe to make something for a party. All right, let's put that on there. Okay. The girl in the picture is worried that she doesn't have the recipe she needs. Okay. And that there's going to be a party. Okay. Let's see if we have some other predictions.
I think they're going to build a bigger house.
You think they're going to build the family's going to build a bigger house? Okay. The family is going to build a bigger house. All right. Okay, let's see here. Yair, do you have another prediction? What do you predict is going to happen?
The dog, they eat the carrot.
The dog is going to eat the carrot? Okay. All right. But what do you think might happen in this story? This is about a family who lives in a big family. Look at all the people. Who lives in a little house.
He doesn't make a muffin.
You think she's making muffins? Okay. All right. George, what's your prediction?
I think she's making muffins and the dog's right there, so I think the dog's going to eat the muffin.
Okay. Now what would that have to do with a big family in a tiny house?
I think that the house is going to grow bigger.
The house is going to grow bigger? You think so? Okay. So this is a fantasy? Is that what you're telling me? Okay. We'll see. If your prediction was different, just keep it in your head and let's see what happens. All right? So here we go. Now things are worse. Long ago, Sam and his wife, Sarah, Yair, lived in a tiny one-bedroom cottage. Each day, they baked many loaves of bread. That was a good prediction. So yes, things got crazy because it was too small. But then, let's think about what happened at the end. What happened at the end? Yair?
They're making the biggest house so big. It's giving him bread.
Yes, he gave him bread. But is the house crazy now? No. Not anymore. Why not?
Because the chicken, the goats and the cows doesn't see them.
Because the goat, and say that again?
The goats and the cows doesn't see them.
They came out of that cottage. All right, so they came out. Vocabulary is very important, both academic and social vocabulary. The word cottage came up today. All right, so that's not a word she's going to know, and actually it's probably not a word that a lot of my native English speakers know as well. I want her to use the language. I need her to understand the academic language of predicting. I need her to understand the conclusion of a story, the beginning of the story. I wanted her to make sense of how the story had come full circle and be able to express that, because those are skills she's going to need as she moves up through the grade levels and in standardized testing. She's got to have those skills. She needed to know it to make sense of the story, and so that was one I chose to use and focus on. But there were lots of other words that had to be focused on as well. I'm looking at what she needs to understand the story, what my ELLs, all of my ELLs need to understand the story. And I'm also looking at what academic language they need in order to be able to take a weekly reading test, to talk about predicting, to talk about finding the main idea. So it's got to be a balance between Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 vocabulary. I love how hard you worked this morning. Eyes on me, please. You did a great job. Now it is time for us to go to our stations. I would like for the purple group to meet with me at my table. Quietly get up. Think in your head. Okay, in your head. Then give me a thumbs up on the table when you know what it says. Okay.
I know what it is.
This tells me that, so you don't need to tell me, okay? All right, so Aliana, what is this word?
Spring.
Spring. Do you know what spring means?
Where some water.
Like Ichituckney Springs? Yeah, good. That's one meaning. And there's more. Can you think of any other meanings for spring? Amaria, I see. Let's take a look. Spring is a season, isn't it? Okay. Like right now, we're at the end of fall, and soon winter will start. And then spring is in March, April, and May. So it's when all the flowers start to grow, right? And then this is another kind of spring. So you've told me 3 kinds of springs. First, you thought about springs like Ichituckney Springs, where you go swimming, and then spring the season, and spring this mechanism, right? Okay, good job. So let's take a look at this word. Think in your head, what word is that? And then give me a thumbs up on the table when you know what it is. In your head. Preston, what word is that? Scrape. Good job. It's got that magic silent E on the end that makes the A say its name. Let's repeat. Scrape. Okay. And then look at the little boy. See what happened? He fell off his bike and he's got a scrape on his knee, doesn't he? Yeah. Okay, so tell me, George, what does that word say? Good job, stretch. Everybody show me a stretch. Stretch. All right. All right, think about this word. Thumbs up on the table when you know what it says. Is that in your head? In your head. Thumbs up. George? No. Okay. All right. Alnaria, what does that say?
Yeah.
Eyes here, Aliana. Do you need to phone a friend? Phone a friend. Phone Aliana. Ring, ring. Hello, Aliana. I need some help. Help me with this word.
Drink.
Now tell me. Okay, what do you say to Aliana?
Pick one.
Thank you. All right. String. Let's look at it. String. String. When we blend it together, there's string, George. All right, let's take a look at this one. Generally, my kids are in groups of 3. And this is specifically for Kagan structures, and I've got usually a high, medium, and low student at each table. For my English language learners, I'm looking to place them with kids who have a good command of the English language. They need to have a good model of English sitting with them at their desks. So they're grouped that way for a specific reason. Then for the literacy stations, they are also set up with groups so that they're with students who have a higher reading ability level. Then there's also students with a lower reading ability level with them. I want them to have access to feedback from their peers, and not just their reading, their writing, but with their oral language proficiency as well. I think my reading lesson went well today. I think that the kids comprehended the story. I'm very animated when I read. I try to make explicit connections between the text, pictures, and my physical gestures, so the kids have my ELLs in particular, have a clear idea of what's happening in the story. The cottage was always noisy, crowded, and messy. Look how messy it is in this cottage. I think that they did a great job with reading in small group. I think that they did a really good job with quiz trade. I was assessing as they were doing that. I was seeing kids who are able to read the words with the phonics skills of the week in it, but I've also saw children who still need more work. But I did provide that practice for them. Overall, I was pleased with what I was seeing. I can use what I saw today to help me plan for tomorrow, make adjustments to tomorrow's lessons. And I know some of my kids have got the concept and are ready for something a little bit more challenging. It happens on a daily basis that I need to shift gears. I expect my students to understand something or know something, and I'll see that there's a misunderstanding or that something's being used in the wrong way, and so that I need to go back and reteach or clarify. That is my priority, is that my students are showing me they have learned. It doesn't do any good if the students aren't learning it. I have to gauge what's going on in my classroom, and I need to adjust. I do give advice to teachers who are trying to make modifications for their ELLs. And one thing that I ask them to do is think about their lesson. My advice would be to look at the curriculum, look at what you need to teach, but you don't necessarily have to teach it in the way in which it's presented to you. Look very carefully at the modifications that the teacher's guides suggest, because they're usually completely inadequate. What people don't realize is that teachers spend an inordinate number of hours doing preparation to do something like that. If I just used the reading curriculum, the smart board lessons that come with it, I wouldn't have to spend all those hours preparing. But if I did that, my kids wouldn't be learning. Figuring out what is interesting to them, what's funny to them, is what makes a lesson interesting to my kids and what makes them learn.
As you reflect on what you have just seen in Ms. Cook's classroom, can you answer the following questions? What does Ms. Cook mean by having to shift gears daily in her instruction? Why is this especially important when working with ELLs? What kind of flexibility is there in the curriculum for teachers? Why might your modifications to the curriculum differ from those in the teaching guide?